Hey everybody, Casey Johnston here, and welcome back once again to not my booth. We'll get back in the booth here soon. I will, maybe with the camera, maybe not. I don't know. Back working on getting my breathing under control by way of getting in shape. Y'all already know that that is one of the key things that I struggle with, is my breathing. But what are some of the things that I struggled with most at the beginning of this journey? I realized looking back I didn't really go over that. So I'm gonna go over two main things today. One being, what was my biggest obstacle or unknown obstacle at the beginning of my audiobook journey once I did start actually producing and recording. And two is creativity in general, and why I finally chose to take this step, because I think creativity is important and everything else. So get a little bit personal with that. But first, what was my first issue that I created for myself, and how did I get a handle on it? And well, that one's easy. The biggest mistake I made at the beginning of this was underestimating the amount of time it took. Or takes, not including coaching and everything else, but an individual audiobook production. What does that take? I said before, there's about 6 to 10 hours of work for one finished hour of audio, especially at the beginning. I know that there's several narrators that I know and have become friends with that they've got it down to, 4-ish hours, somewhere around there. At some point there's a diminishing return on moving faster, because you're going to make more mistakes at times that you just won't get, or you're giving up on quality and things like that. But right now I am somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6 myself. But at the beginning of this, I had read 6.6 hours is the average and all this stuff, and I was like, okay, so I set my time management based off 6 hours. I figured, yeah, I can do this. I've been practicing for 18 months. I've been doing this, but I wasn't really timing myself. When you're not on a deadline, you don't time yourself and figure that stuff out, or at least I didn't. That was a mistake I made. And so when you are practicing, my advice, based off my own mistake, is time yourself on how much work time it takes you to get to that finished product. If it's a 5-minute practice audition, or if it's a 30-minute piece for practice, time yourself and then expound on that or extrapolate that time out to get to the full time. So when I first started the production side of things, I started on Storytell Podcast, as I've told you guys before, because I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I didn't feel I was ready, even if I was, for Audible, and I wanted to do some things that are in my overall portfolio but aren't on my Audible portfolio, as a just in case. For one, I told y'all you don't want to have short fiction for the most part, or short nonfiction for the most part. There are exceptions on your portfolio. It doesn't really help you. You want to practice what you are going to work at, and I knew I wanted to do fiction, and so I started with short stories, thinking it was a good way to get my craft down, and it was very helpful. But at the end of the day, I didn't time how long it took me to do a 30-minute podcast. If I'd done that, I would have figured out it probably took me about 5 hours to do a 30-minute podcast, which means an hour is going to take about 10 hours. And that's where I was at. So when I got my first audiobook and I felt like I was ready to audition, what did I do? I said, sure, yeah, I can do it on this schedule, da-da-da-da. And I was not prepared at all. And I faltered and I made mistakes. And then I changed booth spaces, and then the first audiobook I actually got accepted to do ended up being the second book I finished, because of consistency issues and a whole bunch of other stuff and mistakes I had made, and I just want it to be a good production. So I took my time and I got that right. Now, throughout that whole experience, I made sure that I communicated with the author and authors I had gotten contracts with. And in doing so, I was able to I guess you could say, buy yourself time or whatever it may be. But I was able to communicate with them and tell them, look, this is what's going on. I want to make sure it's right. I really would like a little bit more time to do that. Not in so many words. You know, I befriend these people and everything else because they're kind and good people, at least the authors I've worked with so far. So I was able to get some more time. Salvage Title ended up being my first full production because I had already worked out a lot of the kinks. So all that said, make sure you figure out how much time it takes you to do these productions if you get into this, because you want to be able to give accurate time. Also, being that most people will start this as a part-time gig, make sure that you are giving yourself the time on the side. You know, I have 4 daughters and I have my wife, and I don't want any of them to feel neglected for anything I'm doing. You know, I work really hard at everything I do, and I want them to see that, and I want them to bear the fruit of that with me, but I don't want them to feel like I'm absentee by any means. So you have to work around that too. So I make sure that family's always first in all things. So, you know, think about that. How much extra time do you actually have? You know, most people, when they're doing this, they don't have 6 hours to do a day. So maybe you can only get half an hour of finished audio done a day. You know, so you're actually recording one day, editing another. You're recording at night while the kids are asleep, like I do, and you're editing after you get home from work while they're doing homework or what have you. Doing my own homework. So, you know, everyone's experience is going to be different in that regard. Some people are going to be more tech savvy, some people are going to be less tech savvy, but that goes into some things I didn't do. I did not get training and coaching on my DAW, on my software. I use Studio One Artist, version 3 right now. I'm going to upgrade to version 4 soon. But I did not get proper training on that. I got with an engineer and I said, hey, can you set me up with a stack, an FX chain, all that stuff they did. They got me set. But I fumbled a lot at the beginning of it. And finally I went, oh, duh. Might as well get with someone. And so I did, and that sped up my time. You know, preparation will help you immensely as you go through this process. I thought I prepared enough. There's always something more you can do. So not only get coaching for acting, but get coaching for voice acting. Not only get coaching for voice acting, but find a coach that can help you with your breathing. Not only get help for that, but find someone that can help you with marketing and business plan. Not only get help with that, but find someone that can help you with your engineering. I'd rather just spend my time recording. And I think you would too. So those are just little tidbits about that. Now on to the other, as long as you're still with me, and I hope you are. How did I decide to take this leap, and why did I give myself the time? My first love artistically is actually woodworking and blacksmithing, and I'm pretty decent at it. And I had a side business called Johnston Made and a YouTube channel that was on here at one point, and then I got salty and closed it because I was upset with myself. I'll tell you why. Some of the videos you've seen me with shaky hands and things like that, and even my head shakes from time to time. I have a neurological condition called, it's a movement disorder called essential tremors. It's akin in some ways to Parkinson's, but it's not as debilitating, I guess. It's kind of hard to explain. Basically, I shake a lot, but it's a different kind of tremor than Parkinson's. It can develop into Parkinson's for some people, but, you know, who knows? All I know is that throughout the years, even in my childhood, I've had really shaky hands. And the fine motor skills it takes for woodworking and blacksmithing and things like that were starting to go away, and still are. I mean, I can still do it, and I still enjoy doing it, and I still do it as a hobby. As many things as I have to do, that's a lot of do's. And I still do it, but I don't have the ability to stick to timelines with it. And I feel it's very important for a creative person, you know, there's plenty of people that are more creative than me, but I feel it's important for someone that's creative and artistic minded and such to actually get that out. I think it becomes a part of you, at least for me it did. Bearing my soul in something, you know, it's something I need. I mean, I do that with my family and I do that with everything else, but it's very different. You know, audiobooks, as y'all seen on the channel, I get to share with my oldest, and so it gives me something to do there. But artistically, I needed something. And when I really started struggling about 2.5 years ago, I started searching for something I could do, because I don't have the dexterity, or the longevity with my dexterity, rather. Stamina, I guess, is a better way to put it, to do it for hours on end, or even an hour every day. So I started looking, and as I've said before, my father had been after me to do audiobooks for a while, and I thought, sure, well, why not, right? And here we are. If you want more details on that, the first episode of this vlog series has a little bit more, but the basics of it is I grew up listening to audiobooks. I still listen to audiobooks, and that actually leads into, I guess we're gonna do 3 points today. If you want to get into this, listen to audiobooks. I've had people message me on my Facebook asking how I got into it, and that's kind of why I started these vlog series and stuff. But I've had people message me on Facebook how I got into it and what they need to do and all this stuff, and I'm like, do you listen to audiobooks? No, I just really like reading. Okay, well, then you don't know what a good audiobook sounds like. Like, that's a real thing. You need to be a person that knows audiobooks inside and outside. You've got to know these things. So, you know, figure out, do you want to do all genres? You can. Some narrators that do. Most do all genres at some point, but most are going to specialize in something, because guess what? You're going to build a fan base too, and they're going to follow you down the narrator rabbit hole. And if they like sci-fi and you just did sci-fi and your next book is something else, they're probably not going to listen to that something else, right? And I'm not saying you have to do all things in one genre or all things in a connected genre. Just when you're making your business moves and making your selections, keep those things in mind. For me, I stick more to the fantasy and sci-fi and dystopian and things like that. But that's also things I enjoy reading more myself and also listening to. So pick up some audiobooks. Find out what audiobooks are bestsellers. Some of them are bestsellers because it's a big name, or it's a big author, or it's a publishing house with a lot of marketing. Others are bestsellers because they're really good. You know, a good narrator can make a book great. A bad narrator can make a fantastic book terrible. Oh boy, can they. There's a lot of them out there, and I strive to not be one of them. If you think I'm one of them, comment in the... Actually, don't comment. I don't want to hear it. But anyway, that's my little spiel for today. Sorry for all the jump cuts that I made fun of at the beginning of this. I guess I was doomed, since I pointed out that I wasn't making the obligatory jump cuts. I guess the YouTube demons, YouTube gremlins got me. User error maybe as well. But as always, I appreciate you. Thanks for joining me on this ride and this glorious walk. Thank you for your ears and eyes, and I'll read to you next time.